Okay, welcome back. We are ACI Course 7, Class 4. It's February 28th, 2025. Happy New Year to you. Let's gather our minds here as we usually do. Please bring your attention to your breath until you hear from me again. Now bring to mind that being who for you is a manifestation of ultimate love, ultimate compassion, ultimate wisdom, and see them there with you. They are gazing at you with their unconditional love for you. Smiling at you with their holy great compassion. Their wisdom radiates from them. That beautiful golden glow encompassing you in its light. And then we hear them say, bring to mind someone you know who's hurting in some way. Feel how much you would like to be able to help them. Recognize how the worldly ways we try fall short. How wonderful it will be when we can also help them in some deep and ultimate way, a way through which they will go on to stop their distress forever. Deep down, we know this is possible. Learning about karma and emptiness, we glimpse how it is possible. And so I invite you to grow that wish into a longing. And that longing into an intention. And with that intention, turn your mind back to your precious holy being. we know that they know what we need to know, what we need to learn yet, what we need to do yet to become one who can help this other in this deep and ultimate way. And so we ask them, please, please teach us that. And they are so happy that we've asked. Of course, they agree. Our gratitude arises. We want to offer them something exquisite. And so we think of the perfect world they are teaching us how to create. We imagine we can hold it in our hands, and we offer it to them, following it with our promise to practice what they teach us, using our refuge prayer to make our promise. Here is the great earth, filled with fragrant incense and covered with the blanket of flowers, the great mountain, 4 lands, wearing the jewel of the sun and the moon. In my mind, I make them the paradise of a Buddha and offer it all to you. By this deed, may every living being experience the pure world. Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kam Niryatayami. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may all beings reach their total awakening for the benefit of every other. So what a great thing to do on the first day of the new year, wood snake year, to study our Bodhisattva vows. It's like, whether you go on to decide to take them or not, doesn't matter. Just to hear about them, to think about them is really extraordinary. So like double rejoicing when we're done here. So thank you for the opportunity to share them. So last class, we learned about those 5 parts to the preliminaries of the ceremony, the importance of getting our hearts and minds properly aligned. Excuse me. Thought I was okay today. Just a minute. I take refuge in Fisherman's Friend cough drops. So first part of the preliminaries is making that formal request to be granted the vows, remember? Second one, we invite all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas to come and witness us. Meaning we think about what it is to be a Buddha and why we want to become one, right? Recalling their good qualities. The third is we take that vow posture and properly address the vow giver to request to receive the vows. And again, the vow giver is there to give you your vows. It seems like, why do I have to ask for them? It's because we need to hear ourselves ask, right? To open up to receive, we ask. And there's a piece in the asking about please give it to me quickly. I don't, I'm not so sure why, but it's like quickly. And then fourth, we reflect with joy on the opportunity we have now for collecting this vast goodness through the Bodhisattva activities that we'll do. And then fifth, the vow giver gives us a last opportunity to really declare to ourselves that, yes, in fact, we want these vows. So they'll ask those questions. Do you really want to hope to achieve your enlightenment for all beings' sake? Do you truly want these vows? Do you know what they are? And do you think you'll be able to keep them fairly well? Like, will I try? And we check our hearts one more time and go, yeah, I think so, right? Pretty well is the answer. So then your quiz asks you to describe the kind of person who can grant the bodhisattva vows. And they can be a man or a woman, ordained or not. They have to have their vows. So how are you going to know that? No, I guess we ask. Best if they also have higher vows, but not necessary. And someone who's keeping their vows well, which again, we don't really know for sure, but by watching their behavior, we can guess. They need to know the ceremony. They need to know the Bodhisattva teachings, right? They need to be a Mahayanist. Obviously, if they have the vows, they would be. And who's willing to and able to help the student to grow in their practice. They should be practicing the 6 perfections in the sense of being satisfied with what they have and having few wants. They should be kind. They should be one who doesn't get angry easily and who's not lazy about doing the virtue that they're teaching about, that they're giving vows about. They should have a mind that concentrates and someone who has respect for the Mahayana. Then your quiz said, describe the kind of person who can take the vows. And that person needs to really want to take them, right? Who has compassion, because we're not taking them just for our own benefit. We're taking them so that we can better benefit everyone in our world. So we have them out of compassion, someone who knows the vows. Unique to the Bodhisattva vows is we get to learn about them first. We want to keep them. And we've already been training ourselves in some level of morality. Either we already have our 5 lifetime layperson's vows and we've been living according to those for a while, or we've been making a conscious effort to avoid the 10 non-virtues for some period of time, meaning we've shown ourselves that we can have some discipline over our own behavior so that we can have some confidence that we can do this too. And then your quiz asked you, what are the 4 steps to the conclusion of the ceremony? And the vow master will have us ask all the bodhis and bodhisattvas to check to be sure that they witnessed what we just did, meaning we're acknowledging our oath to them and we demonstrate it with our 10 prostrations, 3 in each of the, our 30 prostrations, 3 in each of the 10 directions. Next, the teacher encourages the students by describing the great good deed that they've just done, describing how all Buddha paradises shake, right? And they like to be shook, I guess, so that every Buddha now looks on you as their own child. It's a sweet one. Third, we make a Thanksgiving offering that students to the teacher and the teacher to all the Buddhas, right? So actually the students are making offerings to all the Buddhas as well. We're doing the 37 Pao Mandala, right, out of Thanksgiving. That 37 Pao Mandala can be done out of requesting, and it can be done out of gratitude as well. Same prayer, different attitude, so a different result. And the only difference is how once you have the pile, when you're doing it to request a blessing, you drop the pile towards you. When you're doing it as a Thanksgiving offering, you drop the pile in front of you. It's the only difference in the practice. And fourth, we're instructed to keep our vows privately, to show that we have them. No, that's the wrong word. To live according to them is all that's necessary for our outer world to be influenced by us having vows. It doesn't help other people for us to say, I have my bodhisattva vows, so I'm going to do this instead of that, right? We just do this instead of that. And you don't have to point out why. When somebody finally asks, everybody else in the world would do that, but you do this. How come? Then you can say something. All righty, so what are these vows that we've been talking about for a week or so? Vowed activities. To take a vow means to make this pledge, to make a promise. And then once we've made the promise, as long as we keep the promise, then the power of the promise stays in us. So vows are the same way. We make a vow, and then as long as we don't damage that vow, we have it. And we'll learn in a future course a little bit more about what these vows are. It's really confusing, but it's actually a thing that you have, like a quality, an energetic vibration. That's the easiest way for me to think of it. And then these vows, thankfully, are vows to avoid certain behaviors that we otherwise do in obvious or subtle ways. The 10 virtues: killing, stealing, sexual misconduct. If we said, I will take a vow to not kill, we couldn't keep it, because you just walk on the sidewalk in an instant of mindlessness, right? You step on 6 ants and you maybe don't even realize it till you turn around and go the other way, and there's 6 smashed ants on the sidewalk. It's just, we can't live without harming something. So thankfully, we don't take vows to keep the 10, to avoid the 10 or to do the 10 non-virtues, because we could never keep them. And in that light, when Buddha grants us our bodhisattva vows, the bodhisattva vows are vowing to avoid certain pretty specific behaviors when we're in those circumstances. So it puts us on alert for certain circumstances, recognizing that ignorant human reaction to those circumstances would be this behavior. And now I have a vow to not do that behavior. And so it helps us be alert to those situations that aren't happening for most of us very often. And then the beauty of having the vow to avoid behaving in a certain way, in a certain circumstance, is once we have the vow, we're keeping the vow. Every instant, we're not doing that behavior, whether you have the circumstance to do it or not. So the virtue of keeping the vow is growing. Even if we're never in the situation to do the deed that would break that particular vow, you'll see in a minute. We still have vows to avoid it, and we're avoiding it now, and now, and now, and now, and now. And in that way, our vow goodness is growing. So these bodhisattva vows are worded. It's like the root vow of blah. And then really the vow is, I'm vowing to avoid that behavior. But it doesn't say it in the way the vow is written. So we'll learn how to have it carefully in mind. So in these bodhisattva vows, there are 18 of them that are called root downfalls or root vows. Let me get the screen share here. They're called satung. Sa means root, and tung means downfall. The term means committing a really serious mistake in one's bodhisattva morality. So bodhisattva means we've decided that all of this suffering is unacceptable. We decided that it was our own suffering was unacceptable. And then we recognized that, my goodness, everybody else has at least as much as me. And if it's unacceptable for me, it's unacceptable for everybody. And I take responsibility. Understanding karma and emptiness well enough to understand that the suffering I see, I bring something to the party just by knowing about it. So we grow that wish to reach Buddhahood so that we can help every existing being come to that same realization that their suffering is unnecessary and what to do about it. So it's morality driven by that state of mind that we're falling down from when we do a deed that is listed in these bodhisattva downfalls. So why is it so serious? When we once we've declared ourselves in this state of wanting to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings, and we declare ourselves to avoid certain behaviors in order to grow the goodness through which our result can actually happen, to do something that completely destroys the vow is like saying to our own mind, heart, no, I either really don't believe or I really don't want to do it, right? Or I don't think that others deserve it. So we're negating to do a behavior that we vowed to not do in order to become a Buddha, to take care of all sentient beings, and then do that behavior, right? There's a disconnect there. And it's not that the Buddhas are watching and knowing, although they do know. It's our mind that we're affecting. So it's really serious to fully damage these bodhisattva behaviors once we declare ourselves to them. But it's actually really difficult to fully break these root downfalls. Right? There's 18 root downfalls, and then more secondary ones, we'll see. But to break the root downfall, we have to have 4 really ugly states of mind influencing our behavior. And they're not just temporary, except for 2 of the vows. If all 4 of those ugly states of mind are not present when we do that deed, the vow is only damaged, it's not fully broken. So if we think of this vibe that we have once we take our vows, that each vow itself has its own vibe. And I don't know, you could say you've got the vibe 100%, and our behaviors can damage it a little bit. So maybe we would damage the strength of the vow down to 50%. We still have some amount of the power of the vow. We can restore it, and it'll get stronger and stronger again. If we have these 4 really, really, really ugly states of mind when we do the deed, the vow gets broken completely, down to 0. And when we break any one of them down to 0, it really, wipes the power of all the vows. So it's, of these bodhisattva vows, the first 18 are the most critical to know and understand and learn to recognize them in gross appearance in our lives, and then their subtleties, so we can avoid the more subtle aspects of them, so we never get close to having the 4 states of mind that would damage the full-on vow. But no matter how far along the way, even fully breaking them, we can restore them. I think we've already heard that if we break a root, maybe we haven't. If we break a full-on break of root downfall, we go to a vow master and ask them to give them to us. Ideally, the same vow master, and admit what happened and convince them that we've got our bodhicitta back again, and then ask them to give us our bodhisattva vows again. We can take them again. However, says Jetsongkhapa, we can't be so happy that we can retake our bodhisattva vows, because when we do fully break a root vow, even when we restore them by retaking the ceremony, the fact that we broke the vow in the first place is a negative imprint on our mind, such that we won't be able to reach the first bodhisattva bhumi in that lifetime in which we took our vows and broke a root vow. Right? So the whole point of taking our bodhisattva vows is to grow our virtue, to help us grow our meditative concentration so that we can reach our path of seeing, so that we can get on our first bodhisattva bhumi if we're not there already, so that our practice of the 6 perfections can actually become perfectionizers instead of wannabe perfectionizers. So to fully break a root vow, although we can restore the root vow and start gathering goodness again, we've done damage such that we can't ripen the goodness of seeing emptiness directly with bodhicitta in our heart in this lifetime. So it's serious. We can restore our vows, and maybe next lifetime will be the one that will see emptiness directly. But do you see, his point is when we said there, one of the benefits of the vows was that we could restore them, to encourage us to try. He says, don't get complacent by having the attitude, well, I'll just fix it, right? When I break my vows, I'll just fix it. He says, no, 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 right? Because of this serious side effect of fully breaking a vow. But again, there are these four really awful states of mind we have to be in order for our behavior to be a fully breaking of a vow. And we haven't even heard what those four are yet. Right? They're coming. Another name for the root downfalls is pampa. Pampa means to be defeated. And it's the term that they use for the four most serious ordained person vows. They're called the pampashi, four defeats. For the ordained, those defeats are killing a human, stealing anything of value. Those sound familiar. Sexual intercourse, and lying about spiritual attainments. So any of those four cause an ordained person to lose their vows, lose their robes. To be defeated means we've been defeated by our own enemy, the enemy of our mental afflictions, the enemy of our misunderstanding where things come from, that leads to the mental affliction of our own selfishness, that leads to the mental affliction of our own reaction to them doing that to me, that leads to those 84,000 different ways that we react to things that we want to get or want to avoid. We're defeated by the enemy of our own mental affliction, our own emotions, and the reactions that we have as a result of them. So these 18 behaviors are the worst behaviors that we can do once we have declared ourselves to be one who wants to reach omniscience, born of compassion, in order to help everyone stop their suffering. So these 18 that we're about to learn the first 9 of, they're not the worst bad deeds for everybody. They're the worst deeds for a bodhisattva. Right? We've declared ourselves on track to becoming a Buddha. And then to do any of these 18 deeds means that there's some part of us that says, no, my own selfishness is still more important. Okay. So the 18 are specifically things that we would do that our own behavior or wanting to do that behavior would show us whether our bodhicitta is in charge or our ignorant selfishness is in charge. Like the angel devil teachings, remember? So on the other hand, keeping these vows well, meaning avoiding doing any of these behaviors we're going to learn about, we are gathering goodness like we've never gathered before. Because moment by moment by moment, instead of only in given circumstances from time to time. So theoretically, we get our bodhisattva vows, we track them, uh, we will very swiftly see changes in our lives. And I've been at this a long time, and sometimes I find myself thinking, well, when's that change going to happen? And then I realize that I have this idea of what I expect. And along the way, there have been tremendous changes, that have all been not necessarily easy and not necessarily fun, but extraordinary nonetheless. And the result of them was never even on my radar screen. So this like result that I'm expecting that maybe I still haven't seen after gads, 25 years of doing this. It's because, like the Buddhas are laughing. You just drop that one, honey. And watch for the moment by moment ones, because those are coming and you're missing them. So our bodhisattva vows. So let's learn them. So Satung and Pampa. Satung means downfall, root downfall. I fall down. Literally, I messed up my morality. I'll pick myself up and try again. But also literally in the sense of the likelihood of a lower rebirth. When we die with our vows not strong, not intact. And then Pampa is to be defeated by the enemy of our own mental affliction, not anything else. So I'm going to unshare because we don't need any more. Whoops. Unshare. Yeah. Okay, so tonight's class is about the first 9 of the 18 root downfalls. And as I said before, they're written, the root downfall of praising oneself and criticizing others. So they're written in a positive. And it's a little bit confusing. I used to on Facebook, I used to see someone who was posting their bodhisattva vow for the day, and they would post their bodhisattva root downfall of praising myself and criticizing others. And if you didn't understand, it would sound like this person was saying, I declare today I'm going to go around praising myself and criticizing others. And it's like, oh, wait, no, right? The vow is, I will avoid praising myself and criticizing others. As root downfall number 1 for bodhisattvas, it kind of says we must go around praising ourselves and criticizing others. And it's like, no, I don't think I do that. Until you get a little mindfulness and listen inside there. It's like, ooh, yeah, at least some part is smart enough to not say it, but still it's going on inside there. That's not breaking the vow, not to worry. Our own minds are still going to do that kind of junk. So in these root downfalls, the commentaries thankfully point out to us the specifications of what the general purpose versus describing, and then we can understand better what it is, what those behaviors are talking about. So again, keep in mind, this is not speaking to general public people. It's speaking to ourselves as aspiring to become fully enlightened beings so that we can really help others in that deep and ultimate way. So this one, I will avoid praising myself and criticizing others. It really means praising oneself to others. So this requires somebody to be hearing us in order to break or keep the vow. And the motivation of praising myself or putting someone else down must be that by doing so, we are intending to get some material gain or respect of some kind of personal gain from our behavior of praising ourselves or the behavior of criticizing another, to somebody else. So you have an audience, one or more, of someone who would understand. So, you can complain about somebody all you want to your pet parrot, and you don't break the vow. You damage your own mind stream, of course, but you don't break the vow. It has to be someone who would understand. So underlying this broken vow is the mental affliction of pride and self-gain. So not pride so much as in the I'm better than you, but the kind of pride that says my need, my importance, my wants are more important than others' wants. And that's the antithesis of bodhisattva. It's natural human behavior, but it's the antithesis of the bodhisattva behavior that we're trying to grow. But here, it is specific. The vow is relating to a specific situations within the Mahayana teachings, where you, as someone who's sharing or teaching the Mahayana way, and another person who's teaching the Mahayana way, and you're praising yourself, truly or not, is to other people in order to gain more students, in order to gain more support, or to gain more respect. Right? So one side of the vow is, right, this prideful behavior trying to get more student or more support. Then the other half of the one vow, but in fact is a whole different behavior, is to criticize some other Mahayana sharer or teacher to other people, pointing out that, those teachings aren't quite right, or they're not so good, or they won't be able to help you as well. Whether your criticism is true or not, your motivation is to discredit them a little bit so that the people you're talking to will come and take your teachings. Do you see really, really ugly behavior? And we think, how could a bodhisattva ever do that? Well, it's root downfall number one. So it must happen, and we must have the tendency toward it. If it's listed here, it's listed because we need to see. We need to look at our own mind, our own heart, and then extrapolate. Well, I'm not a Mahayana teacher. It's like, great, so you can't break this vow. Hooray, you have it, you'll keep it intact. But look, where are there other arenas where you know something and your job is to share it, and somebody else knows something similar and their job is to share it, and we go, oh, I share it better than they share it, so everybody should listen to me better, right? And it's not about being bad or good, or none of this is to point out what jerks we are. It's to point out where we're doing subtle things that are harming our ability to help others in that deep and ultimate way. So it's really a ticket to glimpses into our own behaviors that maybe are so acceptable in our society that there'd be no reason to change them. In fact, it may even seem like we'll get some negative result from changing them if we're the supervisor that's supposed to, show everybody how good we are. So, but again, this vow pertains to Mahayanis. There also may be times where we are in a position where we experience some other Mahayanist giving a teaching that's we actually recognize is incorrect enough to be harmful if it's understood by someone to be correct. And then it is necessary for us to either request of that person the scriptural proof of what they say, or engage in a logical debate with them to show the mistake of what they're teaching. If our motivation is, oh, if I do this, the people that are following them will follow me instead, we break the vow in doing so. If our motivation is, no, this person is harming themselves in their misunderstanding, I want to help them so they can help those others better, right? And it may require us criticizing them to get there. Then it doesn't break the vow. You see, so it's not so much the actual deed, it's the motivation behind the deed of praising self and criticizing other. And again, to break the vow, someone else has to hear and someone else has to understand. Right? So, yeah. The breaking of the vow occurs the moment the other person grasps what we are saying, praising self or criticizing the other. It doesn't take both to break this one vow. Either one will do the job. Geshe Michael didn't mention thinking about what the results would be of doing the behavior that the vow is guiding us to avoid. But it helped me a lot in my motivation with my vows to think of them that way. And then I also one day thought, well, what would it be like? What seeds would you create for what result if you really were keeping these vows really well? And so I sat down and I took the vows to their results. And Buddha paradise emanating is the uber result, but to give the details, what would life be like when the positive are ripening? And then I also thought, well, if these are behaviors to avoid, and one way to avoid those behaviors is to train myself to always do the opposite, what would doing the opposite be like? It would be criticizing self and praising others. Gosh, I do that really well, but not meaning the constant chatter of criticism, but meaning just really, really having that high level of self-esteem, right? The notes on Trellia of even if nobody knew, what's my level of morality if I'm the only one looking? And then praising others, like to go through life pointing out others' good qualities to others. I don't know why it's difficult when it's so pleasurable. You're with a friend and you're going to talk about another friend. Why not always talk about that other friend's good qualities? Man, did you see how Sandra went and took care of so-and-so? That was so amazing. Yeah, instead of whatever other things we say. So this one, I will avoid praising oneself and criticizing others. The result would be to not be respected, to not be able to get teachings, to not be believed, to be criticized by others. It's like ugly, we can see. And then, of course, the opposite would be praise others to others. All right, number 2. Wait a minute, where's my notes? Yeah. Okay, so the first four of our bodhisattva downfalls, each one of them has these two parts. They're called one vow because both parts have the same motivation. So praising self, criticizing others out of this motivation, mental affliction of one's own gain is what makes the vow be broken. If you have the four ugly states of mind, which we haven't learned yet. All right, so number two, I will avoid not giving someone Dharma teachings or material assistance. Right, so it starts to get a little like the double negative here. The root downfall is not giving Dharma or material assistance. So we're keeping the behavior by saying, I will avoid not giving Dharma or material assistance. And that's like, wait a minute. I see so many places where material assistance is needed, and I can't stop and give to all of them, right? I can't possibly keep this vow. And so again, they say that no, there are specific circumstances that this applies to for our bodhisattva vow. Karmically, right, we can always do something. Anywhere we see some suffering, we can smile, we can tonglen, we can send a little love, even when we can't stop and, take the homeless person out to lunch because the next block there'll be another one. So these are very specific situations. And there are these two in this second root vow, not giving Dharma teachings and not giving material assistance. So here are the specifics. The person who's requesting either one must have a serious problem. For the material assistance, disease, impoverished, just all of a sudden stuck and has no resources. They don't have anybody to turn to but you, which is the second one. They have no support system. You really are their last hope. You, the aspiring bodhisattva. Then further, you must be able to help and have what they need in order to break the vow of not helping when we could, right? So the vow doesn't say, I will avoid not sharing the Dharma and material assistance when I could, but really that's the implication. For avoiding harming the vow, we have to be able to help them, have the resources. And if we don't, and we say, no, I'm sorry, I can't help, we don't break the vow. Is it an unfortunate karma that plants the seed? Yes, but it doesn't break the vow. The breaking of the vow is to reject the person when we could do something to help. Like maybe we couldn't fully resolve their problem. Maybe we know what agency could help them better than we could, and we help them get to that agency, right? Can we facilitate them getting what they need, even if we can't do it ourselves? So Geshe-la gave this example. Somebody has diabetes and needs a dialysis machine, and all their family is tapped out from having tried to help them. They've lost their job. They need this money to get this treatment. You have the money, and you just say no. Our bodhisattva ideal, right, is damaged in a situation like that. Now, if we have the money and we know of an agency that could help them. We could help them get to the agency to get what they need to be done. It doesn't mean just because we have the resources, we have to use our resources. Unless the agency says, so sorry, we can't do it either. Then, do you see, you can be their last ditch effort if you're still trying to help them get their needs met in some other way in protecting this vow. When in the end, we can help and we don't, is what breaks the vow. But also, they need to have asked you directly. It's not that you hear about a coworker who's in that situation, right? And you don't go to them and say, you know what, I have the resources, I can help you. That would be a great thing for a bodhisattva, but to not do that is not breaking the vow unless they've come to you specifically. Also, if they've come to you specifically and what they want is something that to help them get it, you would break some other vow, right? Or they would harm themselves with it. You don't break this vow by saying no. So the alcoholic friend that says, you're my last hope, I need a drink. If they need that drink to stop from going into the DTs, then maybe you do get it for them as you take them to a treatment center, right? So again, it's our motivation. Is our motivation that I just don't want to be separated from my own resources? And that's why I'm rejecting helping that person. And there could be a lot of other reasons why we can't or won't help. But if our motivation is, no, my resources, I don't want to use for you. I don't want to use on that. That's what breaks the vow. And it holds for the resources of our Dharma as well, meaning if we are in the position of sharing Dharma with others, and I don't know, somebody asks for a Dharma teaching and you refuse to share it with them, there could be lots of reasons why one might not give a teaching they've been asked to give. But this one, what breaks this vow, if the state of mind is, if I teach everything I know to that person, they'll go on to know as much or more than I will. And it leaves us feeling like we've somehow lost something, lost in reputation or lost in status, or it's not that you can lose your Dharma wisdom by sharing it with somebody else, but you lose something by sharing with somebody who then goes on to know more than you, right? Do you see? And as a bodhisattva, again, like so ugly a state of mind to say, if I share everything I know with them, they'll know as much or more than me, and I can't have that. Right? See the selfishness involved. And that's what would break the vow in refusing to give a Dharma teaching or not teaching it completely, right? Not giving as much as you can is what this vow is talking about. So again, two parts, two sides to this vow: refusing to give material things in those specific circumstances, and then refusing to give Dharma in those certain circumstances. I mean, it could even be a Dharma book or sharing electronic file because you don't want them to get smarter than you. Right? Ugly. And again, with these four ugly states of mind that I haven't even talked about yet, then third Oh, 6 o'clock. Let's take a break and we'll go to third vow. I got to get going. I've got 6 more to do. All right, I'm going to pause the recording. All right, we're on root downfall number 3. I will avoid failing to accept someone's apology and striking another. So here are these two again. Apparently the striking another isn't in the wording of the original vow, but as the description evolves about how the vow came to be determined to be needed, was that the event was such that someone got angry with another person and they stayed angry and they went on to that anger building to a situation where they finally were violent against the person that they were angry with. And it was this simmering anger growing that led to the violence, that led to the need for this particular vow. But that the vow is the anger that came from the first person not accepting the apology of the second person and staying angry at the second person that led to the hitting. And the vow is, I will avoid failing to accept someone's apology, and I will avoid hitting somebody. So when something happens and someone comes and gives an apology, to us, the Bodhisattva, this vow is saying, accept the apology. And in accepting the apology, the implication is we would stop being upset with them. I mean, that's the purpose of an apology, right? When we've done something wrong to someone else and we go, oh man, and we go and we actually apologize. I'm so sorry. I realized that what I did was wrong. Blah. No further explanation, no further justification, just I'm sorry. And the person, the person's supposed to go, okay, I understand. Like slates wiped clean, we can start again, theoretically. Apologies. If we've had that situation and the person never comes to say, I'm sorry, do we, our relationship is different. Maybe we never even reach out and see them again. Maybe we're still in relationship with them, but we just aren't going to interact with them in the same way because of the damage done by that experience. And there are times when the apology comes, but the apology is, I'm sorry if I hurt your feelings, but here's why I did what I did, as if that's supposed to make it better, because now we understand better that in fact we really did deserve it. And yeah, so it's like apologies are so slippery and accepting apologies are so slippery. And that's what this is really about from both directions. When we apologize, are we sincerely saying, I regret that I did that, and please forgive me? Or are we making an excuse for why we did it? Because that says in our own mind, we're justified in doing it again if we were in the same situation. The apology acceptor, our state of mind is we want them to really see that they hurt us and to really say they'll never do it again. And, karmically speaking, none of that can happen unless we change. So the accepting the apology is the big part here. And the ability to accept an apology means, right, to say, okay, right, my seeds, their seeds, ripened, planted, done. Let's start over. a bodhisattva wanting to become Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings includes that one that hurt me. And to grow our compassion bigger for them because they were the one that hurt me is the bar that we're trying to push with our bodhisattva, growing our bodhisattva behavior. So this vow helps us to be better apology givers and better apology acceptors. To break the vow is to stay angry with them, to not accept the apology with those 4 ugly states of mind that we haven't gotten to yet, to fully break the vow. But the second half of the vow is when we're angry with somebody, for some reason, the power of anger often leads to some kind of violence. Like the anger of their having hurt us, the way I said it right is to hurt them back in some way. And it's very commonly with some kind of physical violence. And so, it may be in the moment, you're in this heated discussion and you get so mad at them, you haul off and smack them. Or it's simmering and then finally something breaks you and you haul off and hit them. Or you arrange for somebody else to haul off and hit them. I can't imagine, but it must happen. So either one of those situations, out of anger, you arrange or do violence to someone, or fail to accept an apology, is what can break this one vow. But the underlying mental affliction is the anger. Anger is blaming unpleasant on somebody else. Ignorant dislike. So to break the vow of not accepting the apology, the commentaries say, we're refusing to listen. We're refusing to believe that they're sincere in their apology. Like, we don't think they mean it. We just stay angry with them no matter what they say. Underneath with the anger is the ill will that grows with it. The I want to get them back feeling. So vow number 4. I will avoid giving up the greater way and teaching false dharma. I will avoid giving up the greater way and teaching false dharma. So the greater way means the Mahayana, and the open Mahayana has 2 divisions: the teachings on emptiness and the teachings on bodhisattva activities, so wisdom side and method side. To give up the greater way means to put it down, to disrespect it. That would mean to say, these teachings are no good. These teachings won't help people. Buddha never taught them, right? To some way disrespect those Mahayana teachings. It's to somehow say they're invalid. And it's hard to imagine what that would be if you're well trained enough to get to the point where you're studying bodhisattva vows. But if you recall, not everybody's well trained enough to get to the bodhisattva vows training, right? This is the monastic training that we're learning, and not even every monastic took their training to this extent. Some monastics were the cooks. Some monastics were the temple cleaners, right? They didn't learn this stuff. They got their prayers, they went to prayers, and they did service. And, maybe they're, stronger bodhisattvas than the studiers, who knows? And then there are lay people also that say the prayers and do some practices, but never learn to this extent. And maybe they have these great seeds and they get their bodhisattva vows too. And then they don't have this background, right, in the training. So some of these are hard to really imagine that we could get in positions like this. But then also when we understand about karmic seeds, we could be, devoted to the Dharma, and I don't know, some lightning bolt of karma shifts. And all of a sudden it's like, why was I studying all that stuff? It doesn't make any sense. It really can happen. And it's terrifying, actually. And the older I get, the more terrifying it becomes, because it's like one little stroke and it could be done with. So the seeds for respecting the Mahayana really do benefit from being cultivated rather than taken advantage, right? Assuming that we're going to stay attracted to the Dharma. Anyway, so this vow is to say to someone else, look, these Mahayana teachings, they really aren't, they aren't so good. The Buddha didn't teach them. It sounds horrifying. The second half of the vow is teaching false Dharma. And what that refers to is someone who has experience and has come up with an explanation that makes sense to them, and they make the mistake of sharing those ideas in the context of the Buddha's teachings and imply or flat out say that what they're teaching is Buddhism, when what they're teaching, and they know that what they're teaching is something that they made up. And that's teaching false Dharma. So knowingly teaching something not taught by Buddha as something taught by Buddha. Now, we are instructed as teachers to share our own experiences, within certain contexts. But we're instructed to always make it clear, this is my experience. This is my understanding of this difficult teaching, or this is how I've worked with it and the results I seem to get with it. But to make clear our own experience, our own ideas versus what's been handed down to us by our teachers, what comes to us from scripture. It is fine to share our own ideas, but make them clear that this is how I interpret this, to give permission to those listening that they too can and should interpret these meanings, explore these meanings to gain a personal experience of them, but then always be sure that you clarify what's personal experience versus scriptural teaching. When we share the scripture, those we share it with can use it to learn from, and they'll share it to others who can use it to learn from. If we were to only share our own personal take on those scriptures, then the person learns from our personal take, but that may or may not be theirs. And they then learn their personal take based on my personal take, and they share it with others, and it becomes their personal take on their personal take on their personal take. And you see what happens? Very quickly, some very important pieces that were beyond my physical take, right, are missing. That the one who learned from me maybe would have gotten those personal takes that I can't get. They would have gotten them if I had shared the scriptural, right, more purely. So Geshe-la did this beautifully. He shares the scripture, he shares the commentaries, and he shares his personal take of it. And then our job is to learn from his personal take and to go back to the scripture and commentary to grow our own. So that's what this vow is talking about. And again, if you're not in the position of sharing the Dharma with anybody else, you can think, great, I can take this vow and keep it very easily, because you'll not be in the position to otherwise influence someone. And on the other hand, when you do have an occasion to be sharing the pen thing with anybody, keep in mind, right? Make clear, this is how my teacher taught it to me, right? And so I'll share when somebody has asked, right? Anytime someone asks or we're in a discussion and we're talking about our reactions to things and how we're learning how to check that reaction before I actually do it and decide if that's really what I want to do or not. We can have those discussions with people that aren't the least bit interested in my spiritual, aspirations, and have a uplifting influence on others, and not be saying, this is Buddhist teachings or this is Christian teachings or what. Just say, like, this is what I've learned to do. That's not breaking the vow at all. That's helping our bodhisattva ideal. But be careful not to give the implication that it's something that you made up, right? Or that you came to on your own. Leave the other with the understanding that it's something we learned from someone else. Okay. All right. Geshe-la says, we cannot improve on omniscience. And an omniscient being gave us all these guidelines. So, don't try to improve on them, or don't imply that we have. So to break the vow, he says, we must know we made up what it was we were sharing, like the idea, and teach it to others as Mahayana Dharma, and have the others accept it for our vow to be fully broken. Anywhere along the line, we damage the vow. But to fully break, the others have to follow. Okay? The mental affliction underlying here is ignorance, misunderstanding where things come from. It seems to me the karmic result would be receiving future teachings that are inauthentic, invalid. So number 5, the root downfall. I will avoid the root downfall of stealing what belongs to the 3 jewels. 3 jewels, Buddha jewel, Dharma jewel, Sangha jewel. Here, the 3 jewels are not steal from a bull, are they? The Buddha jewel is the Dharma body. The Dharma jewel is the realization in the minds of anyone who's experienced ultimate reality directly. The Sangha jewel is anybody who's done that. So, I suppose we could steal from a Sangha jewel, but the other 2, you can't. But here, what they mean is the physical representations of those things. To steal those things is the antithesis of a bodhisattva. So what they mean is to steal any belonging, to take any belonging from a sacred place, right? A church, a temple, an altar, a stupa, a shrine, anything that or anything that belongs to a group of ordained people. So it would be taking images of a Buddha, taking Dharma books, tapes, audios, etc., taking things that were not given. Taking things from the ordained. Stealing means to take something not given that is anything of value, technically, but value according to whom. And then the aspect of breaking this vow is you take it and then you have this sense that it is mine, I possess it. And in the sense of our growing bodhisattva attitude, a bodhisattva really doesn't consider anything to be theirs anymore. Like we really don't own anything. Everything we have is sitting there readily available to be used for somebody else's benefit when the appropriate person and situation comes along. Yeah, so we could be surrounded with stuff. And the reason it's there is because when someone walks in and has some kind of question, oh, like I have a book that addresses this here. And, oh, I have. Oh, right here, this, here this. And I know Sumati did that at Diamond Mountain to the extent that when we tried to give away all our stuff, it just sucked right back in again a couple of years later. And it's still, it just comes back so much faster than we can give away. It's crazy how it works. And the shift in identity from, no, this is mine, to wait, it's just waiting to find its new home was such a big one. I don't have it in my mind all the time. There are certain things that are still, oh no, this would be hard to get rid of, right? But in our community, it's so fun. You can put something on your street side curb and put a for free sign in it. And like within a day, it has disappeared. So you don't have to, you have to figure out who to give this to. How do I get my stuff to the Goodwill? You just put it on the street, goes. I don't know. Somebody wants it. They take it, they use it, hopefully for something good. And it's so freeing to see stuff just go for free. Anyway, to steal Dharma, Buddha images, stuff, to steal from the Sangha. The motivation is this bad thought of craving, right? I want that. I want that. It should be mine. I will take it. It will be mine. Like, really? When we have this, now this is mine in our mind, that's when the vow gets broken. Root downfall number 6. I will avoid giving up the highest Dharma. So there's going to be a number of these giving up the Dharma vows. And so it takes a little while to work out what does that really meaning. So this highest Dharma, giving up the highest Dharma, the commentaries say it's referring to any of the 3 levels of the Buddha's teachings. So here, highest Dharma is being used in the term of all existing things, or any existing thing. The highest of any existing thing is the Buddha's teachings, and the Buddha taught 3 levels of teachings: the Dharma of the listeners, the Dharma of the self-made Buddhas, and the Dharma of the Mahayana. So each of those are considered highest Dharma, even though as a Mahayanist, we would say the Mahayana is the highest Dharma. Do you see? So don't mistake this one for making this distinction between Mahayana and the Hinayana. This vow is about any of the Buddhist teachings, but any of the three in terms of the whole group, everything within the listeners. To break this vow is to somehow convey that the teachings that make up the Dharma of the listeners are not helpful, not valid, was not spoken by the Buddha. So the teachings of the Dharma of the listeners focuses on the teachings of the four Arya truths. And there's a whole bunch of them about those four Arya truths. So to disrespect any of those teachings on the Four Noble Truths, Four Arya Truths, to say, you know, Buddha really didn't teach that, is what it is to break this vow. And it seems crazy like that. We're so well trained. It's like, why would you ever say that? Because that's like the basis of Buddhist teaching. But if you didn't know that, right, this might happen. The second is the Dharma of the self-made Buddha, the Pratyeka Buddhas, which are not self-made and they are not Buddhas. They classically focus on the 12 links of dependent origination. And to break the vow means to say that group of teachings about the 12 links is not valid. Buddha didn't teach it. The third group is the Dharma of the Mahayana. And here the Mahayana includes the paths which are shared, if you recall. And the paths which are shared means the scripture of the listener, the scripture of the self-made Buddha, and the scripture of the Bodhisattva. So we had a vow to not disrespect the Mahayana already. And here we have it again. So kind of important. So to give it up means to say this teaching was not spoken by the Buddha. To break the vow, we are dismissing all of the teachings of any one of these groups, not one specific teaching within it, but just saying, no, that don't bother with the listeners' teachings because Buddha didn't really teach that. You don't need it. The vow is broken when you say that to somebody else, right? And they hear you. They hear you and can understand, they always say. Vow number 7. I will avoid taking away the golden robes and the rest. What that means is removing someone from the status of an ordained person. So the vow says, I will avoid the root downfall of taking away the golden robes and the rest and removing someone from the status of an ordained person. So it means harming an ordained person in one of two ways. One is to physically take their robes. Like all an ordained person has is a set of robes, their begging bowl, and there's a third thing, I can't remember what it is right now. So if you take their robes away, like what have they got? It's a hugely disrespectful thing to do. It does not mean when they ask you to launder their robes, you can't take them and clean them and take them back. So the second is to cause them to disrobe, which means causing them to break a vow or causing them somehow to decide to give their vows back. And so as a bodhisattva, we don't want to ever put ourselves in the position where we've done something to make an ordained person break their ordained vows or decide to give their ordained vows up. right? Or to take their robes away, which in somehow would embarrass them, or I don't know. I don't quite understand that one. The motivation to break this vow is out of anger and the subsequent wanting to hurt them that breaks the vow. So I don't know, suppose, well, no, I'm not even going to go there. So out of anger and wanting to hurt the ordained person, you take away their robes, or you put them in a position such that they do something where they break their vows. Yeah, just totally non-bodhisattva, we can see. Kongli, can I go on and come back to your question, please? The root downfall, number
Yes, no
9.
problem.
Yeah, just so that I can be sure and finish class. The root downfall, number 8, is I will avoid committing any of the immediate misdeeds. The immediate misdeeds we've learned. The misdeed of killing one's mother, killing one's father, killing an arhat, trying to draw blood from a Buddha with evil intent, and causing a schism within Buddha's Sangha. They're called immediate misdeeds because the karma is so strongly negative that it will be the projecting karma at the end of the lifetime in which one did that deed, which means that deed will project us into the lowest level of the hell realm in the immediate next life. No opportunity in Bardo to go anywhere other than that. It does not mean that you drop dead the minute you kill your mother, obviously, but it's such a strong negativity that there's no doubt that hell realm is your next life. And we talked about the subtleties and ramifications and et cetera of all of that. Here, as a bodhisattva vow, we're vowing to avoid those things which we're already avoiding. Thank you very much. And now we just crank up the consideration of avoiding these. 2 of them, drawing blood from a Buddha with evil intent, we can't do unless we see a Buddha in a physical flesh walking amongst us. And causing a schism in the Buddha Sangha, we also can't do because there's no Buddha's direct Sangha, or because there's no direct Buddha right now. But the onion skin theory shows us how dangerous creating differences, right? Pulling groups apart can be, that we work hard to avoid that in any arena that we're in. But any schism is not this immediate misdeed. So, when you're making your list of rejoiceables, a great one to add is, I don't do the immediate misdeeds. Yay, right? One of those vows that we are keeping. Number 9, I will avoid holding wrong views. I will avoid holding wrong views. And this refers to 2 classic wrong views and very specific circumstances. So to be a bodhisattva, aspiring bodhisattva, and to take vows, we must have some level of conviction of the truth of we reap what we sow. Like the truth of the laws of karma, we must understand at some level. And we must understand at some level the truth of the ongoing nature of mind, consciousness, that would imply past and future lives. So we've learned earlier that we shouldn't accept those two as truth until we've proven it to ourselves logically and or proven it to ourselves experientially. So if we've not experientially proven either one of those, and we've not yet applied the logic strongly enough, and we're still here, we would be running on the seeds of past logic, past experience, and we call those seeds the seeds of faith. Belief in something that hasn't become real yet is seeds of faith. Seeds of faith are great things, but they can wear out. So to add to our seeds of faith, logic, and or direct experience, we're using them up. We have heard that faith born of logic is indestructible, because our logic, every time our faith gets tested, our logic kicks in and shows us, no, right? Our understanding is true. Even if physical experiences are denying it, when we logically think it through, we get back to our understanding. So we have all of that understanding to some extent to be here in a class like this. This vow, to break this vow, is for some reason, something happens, and we come to this conclusion that the laws of karma cannot be true. And we logically go through demonstrating to ourselves why those laws of karma can't explain our personal experience. And we come to the conclusion, no, there's no such thing as karma. And we reject it. To reject karma breaks this vow, because by rejecting the understanding of how our behavior creates consequences, none of the other vows have any kind of meaning. Right? Our behavior choices, there's no reason to do anything other than follow your gut instinct for what you want and what you don't want. No consequence for our action. It doesn't really make sense, because if there was no consequence of your actions at all, you would never put the key in the car, because you wouldn't believe that turning the key would start the car. Like, in a way, to really disbelieve karma would bring you closer to understanding emptiness than not, but don't go there. This means, doesn't matter. What I want, I go get. Is to disbelieve in karma. So it's hard to imagine coming to that conclusion, but that's what would break this vow. The second wrong view is denying the existence of past and future lives. So having held the view, and then somehow, for some reason, rethought it all, and come to the conclusion that no, there can be no such thing. This life and this life only. So to break this bodhisattva vow is to come to this firm conviction and to declare that we don't believe in either one of these two beliefs. Either one disbelieved will break the bodhisattva vow. And it's especially dangerous because this one does not require those four ugly states of mind. It does require the ugly state of mind that whatever it was that triggered this reanalysis of karma and this reanalysis of past or future lives, because we had to have believed in those two to some extent in order to be someone who got the vows in the first place. So this isn't talking about before we knew anything about Buddhism and we had these wrong beliefs. We weren't breaking vows. We weren't, I mean, it was all part of the ignorance perpetuating samsara. But then once we learned and we rejected that, and we came to this new conclusion that such that we took vows to live according to it. And then, you know, by some lightning strike, all of a sudden it's like, we rethink it all and come to a conclusion that rejects it. That's what breaks the vow. It doesn't have to be driven by anger, driven by pride. It's driven by something that makes us rethink, which in imagining, to me, it would be like, you know, if you're that, if I've had a few students who learn these things and like have this amazing ability to apply themselves to it in huge ways, like they change their behavior so dramatically, and then just crap hits them, one thing after another, just bigger and bigger, harder circumstances. The gooder they get, the worser their life gets. And at some point, they would come back to me and say, Sarani, I just can't keep this up. I'm just broken. And so sorry, but goodbye. And it's heartbreaking, right? Because they were so close. But the things that were happening to them, it was like, I hear you, right? I'd be doing the same thing. It was just getting too bad. And life before was bad, but not like that. And so I could kind of see how it, right? We wouldn't have the strength to do it on our own, which unfortunately in society now, we tend not to be practitioners in a group. You know, we're on our own to do all of this, it seems. And that person was as well. And you know, I've had a couple, and it's just too hard. So we really can see that seeds are such that even in our strongest efforts, sometimes it's stirring the pot faster than our seeds are able to carry us through. And then there's this danger of giving up, and that breaks the vow. And it doesn't require the 4 chains will learn. But this does not mean in these moments of, you know, this is so hard, I don't know if I can carry on. That doesn't break this vow. This one takes that really concerted thinking and coming to a new conclusion and rejecting to break vow number 9. There's another one, vow number 18, that can happen in a more fleeting instant. But even that one, we'll learn about it. Okay. So those are the first 9 root downfalls. I think your homework asked you to memorize the 9, just using the 1-line statement, which most of them have. And if you decide to memorize them, please learn to say them in the I will avoid the root downfall of. Okay, so wait, who am I hearing? So that you're planting the seeds in your mind to recognize how these vows work. They are avoidance behaviors, right? More than I will do. The secondary vows, some of them are I will do this, 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 and this. We'll see. Okay. Okay, so now Kongli, you had a question earlier, and then Susan, I see your hand is up. Okay, Susanna first.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for teaching, Venerable Sharani. I do have a really serious question for me. The vow number 9, even if I don't have took the vow right now, sometimes when I think about the previous life or the future life, I really can imagine and I think, okay, that's clear, it's logic, it's okay. But then also sometimes, I don't know if it's possible or not.
Okay.
And here he write down, you have to believe it with the deep of your heart, the bottom of your heart. I cannot say it right now that I really do it with the bottom of my heart. I try
Right.
to understand, okay?
Mhm. Yes.
Do you
So
understand my question?
I think I do. You're wondering if you believe in the past and future lives strongly enough for your vows to grow. If to break the vow, you have to believe from the bottom of your heart that past and future lives are not possible in order to break the vow. Do I have that right? That's what I understood.
Yes.
Okay. So I did not mean to say that you have to have direct experience or logical proof of past or future lives in order to get your vows. But we must have a certain level of belief in that in order to want the vows, in order to want to keep the vows, because we understand that in getting and keeping bodhisattva vows, we put ourselves on that track to Buddhahood that can take up to 3 times 10 to the 60th countless eons to achieve. So if we're taking vows that we understand will take a long time to give their result, it implies that we believe that there's something about our me that goes on after the end of this physical body. So whether you have that like in a deep enough conviction that you could prove it to somebody else or not, to take the vow means we believe it enough to declare ourselves to choose a behavior set in this life to influence future, whatever the future is going to be. And so there was course, I want to say 2 or 4 where we were talking about the logic that we apply to show ourselves that our mind goes on, not our personality, not our sarani, but our subject side, our like not even our me, because my me is sarani. But there's a me underneath that me that's just the subject side, the one that's aware. And we showed that if there's an awareness now, there had to be one before. Deep, 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 all the way down to the first moment of this one. There had to be a moment before. And then there had to be a moment before that. And then going the other way, there has to be a moment of awareness after the end of this life in order for there to be this moment awareness now. Right? It has to go on. So it doesn't have to be from the bottom of your heart, but it does have to have a certain amount of strength to get the vow in the first place. But then to break it, it's like full-on conviction that's not true. Right? So if there's doubt in your mind and still believing that you end at the end of this life, then that would be something to revisit before you take or retake your bodhisattva vows to see what level of understanding that you're at.
Thank you so much. I was thinking about that. Thank you. I
Okay.
can follow the logic step by step. I have to think about. Thank you so much.
Right,
Thank you.
right. Keep cooking it. Keep cooking it. Okay, yes, Chris.
So I have a couple of little ones. When they're talking about disrespecting the Mahayana, is it focused on this overarching, the teaching, or is it focused on the higher level that you're doing it for others and not for yourself? You know, that isn't the Mahayana is the higher path, right? So the difference is that you're doing it for all beings, right? So when they
Right.
say disrespecting the Mahayana path, is it the focus of the Mahayana path, or is it saying that Buddha didn't say this particular sutra? I mean, does
Yeah,
that
good
make sense?
question. Yeah, good question. I understand it to mean a circumstance where you're saying in the first one, vow, it's rejecting that Buddha taught it, that the Mahayana teachings were taught by Buddha.
Okay.
And as I understand it, the Mahayana teachings did not go to places like Sri Lanka and Thailand, right? Only the Vinaya teachings went. And so from that perspective, if that had been your training, is the four Arya truths, including the Noble Eightfold Path, and that's everything in your group of teachings. And then other places in the world are saying Buddha taught the Mahayana, and they say it's not in our scriptures. This is everything Buddha taught. He didn't teach that. But then why would they have bodhisattva vows? Because it's not in their scripture. Not that they're not loving, kind, compassionate, right? They are. But they don't have the bodhisattva teachings inside. So they're not going to break vows by criticizing because they don't have vows to begin with. But suppose someone who does have bodhisattva vows and has been moves, right? And their seeds shift and they join another Sangha, and that Sangha, they've got proof. Here are the teachings that those other ones, they didn't get written down until, I don't know when, Aryanagarjuna or 200 AD, that's 700 years later. Somebody else made that stuff up. And then you go, oh man, you're right. And then you start teaching in that way. So there are these just weird scenarios.
Yeah.
That we could go, oh man, that's not going to happen to me. Or we can go, oh wow, I'll be careful about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Also, on Monday, I have to leave early because I have to get my husband to surgery at 6 a.m. So I'll probably be mostly watching the videos, but I apologize.
That's fine, no worries. Good, okay. Oha put something in the chat about rather than proving the teachings, you find that you can't disprove them. And that's a really, really good point. That
Put it on that shelf. Right.
Yeah, nice. Did you have anything else to say, Oha? I think you had your hand up earlier. Or maybe it was over your square, but not you. No? Okay. Yes, Kong Li.
Yes, teacher, I tried to ask, and I don't know, because my line is a bit unstable today, and I don't know whether you can hear me or not. So,
can hear.
because just now you're saying that, the rule number 4 and number 6 are quite similar.
Yeah.
So, what is the difference between these two?
Right. One is related to the Mahayana and whether Buddha taught it. And the other is about any one of those 3 groups of teachings and whether they would help people, whether Buddha really taught it that way, right? One is specific to Mahayana and the others are the three different levels of Buddha's teachings. Exactly the difference, they probably overlap, certainly. You know, Chris brought up is the disrespecting the Mahayana about the all sentient beings thing. And I hadn't thought of it that way. Are we saying, look, you can't really ever save all sentient beings? And to say that would mean that you're still thinking that there are some sentient beings that are not coming from your seeds. Because if that were the case, it would be
Okay,
true.
never mind. I'll try to listen to the recording because
Yeah,
just now
and listen
there are
further,
part of it
right?
I can't hear it. Never mind.
We'll be bringing it up again and again about the subtleties of these bodhisattva vows. Okay. And so you got to cook it for a while. So remember that person we wanted to be able to help. We have learned a lot that we will use sooner or later to help them in that deep and ultimate way. And so we have done a great goodness. So please be happy with yourself, even as it still feels confusing. And think of this goodness like a beautiful glowing gemstone that you can hold in your hand. Recall your own precious, holy being. See how happy they are with you. Feel your gratitude to them, your reliance upon them. Ask them to please stay close, to continue to guide you and help you. Ask them specifically to help you understand the nuances of these vows. And then offer them this gemstone of goodness. See them accept it and bless it. And they carry it with them right back into your heart. See them there, feel them there. Their love, their compassion, their wisdom. It feels so good. We want to keep it forever. And so we know to share it by the power of the goodness that we've just done. May all beings complete the collection of merit and wisdom, and thus gain the two ultimate bodies that merit and wisdom make. So use those 3 long exhales to share this goodness with that one person, to share it with everyone you love, to share it with every existing being everywhere. See them all filled with happiness, filled with loving kindness, and may it be so. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for sending your homeworks. I appreciate seeing them. Have a great weekend. I'll see you Monday morning.
Thank you
Thank you,
so
sir.
much. Thank you.
Welcome. Bye-bye.
Thank you, teacher.